Hi everyone, Sajid Amit here, and it's been a while since I've filmed a review, and that's mostly because I've been very busy with work, my work outside of what this channel entails. So I've had this in for a bit of time now, and first I was on holiday, and then I didn't get enough time to listen to this, but then I finally did, and I've been very impressed. So this is the MEZE 105 AER. AER is spelled AER, which is a Romanian word. And on the back, you have some description of what this word means. It means silent, unseen, essential. And there's some verbiage here, and it says, air finds expression through invisible vibrations that become audible poetry. 105 AER is our invitation to let the air in and experience the three-dimensional depth of music. Okay, so all that to say, it is a nice headphone, guys. It's $400. It's very easy to drive. It's about 40 ohms in impedance and 112 dB in sensitivity. You can drive this off your phone even, although I would not recommend that. A lot of people are wondering whether this headphone is the open back version of the 99 Classics or perhaps a cheaper version of the 109 Pro, which was very well loved by the audiophile community. So, I mean, it's more or less settled, I think, if you ask me, that it is not the open back version of the 99 Classics. It is a cheaper variant of the 109 Pro, except it's not the same headphone in terms of its tonal performance and technical performance. It, of course, has its own DNA. And Jude Mancia of HeadFi, if you see his review of this and discussion on this headphone, he says he prefers this to the 109 Pro. And there are others who, of course, will prefer the 109 Pro over this. But the fact that Jude prefers this over the 109 Pro, and honestly speaking, I think tonally, I do prefer this over the 109 Pro, might say a lot about this headphone. So yeah, I mean, so you have a sense of its drivability. You can drive this off anything. You can drive it off your phone. Although I highly recommend you at least get a dongle to drive this. And a good one, of course, because it's a good headphone. It requires good amplification, I think, to sound its best. It will not scale as much as the 109 Pro will, scale. And yeah, so easy to drive, $400. So it does sit comfortably among a lot of other headphones in this price class from Sennheiser, from HiFiMan, but I do think it holds its own. And stay tuned and watch till the end of this review to get a more in-depth discussion of how this fares with, let's say, the Sennheiser HD600, HD650, the 109 Pro itself. Okay, so let's talk about its build, comfort, aesthetics, then talk about its technicalities, and then finally its tonality. Now, build-wise and design-wise, guys, I mean, MEZE Audio, I think, designs the best headphones on the planet along with ZMF headphones. They have very different aesthetics and approach to aesthetics. ZMF is colorful. It's very rambunctious and it's colorful expressionism. It's just artistic. It's bold, it's brazen, it's beautiful, right? And a lot of wood goes into ZMF and beautiful grill patterns and so forth. But it does have sort of like this house aesthetic. MEZE also has a house aesthetic. It's very inspired by, I think, automotive parts and designs. It looks very aerodynamic. Like even these grill patterns here, which look like maybe a honeycomb pattern. It apparently was inspired by automotive design. And you see that in the MEZE Audio, even their headphone stand that they've come up with, it looks so sexy and sleek, right? The Imperial has that sort of aesthetic. So it's very Ferrari-like, and, it's got this whole vibe about, very smooth, aerodynamic sort of contours. Guys, I will apologize because I'm shooting this review at a time and I live very close to the road. So I get a lot of traffic noises and I can't really control that, guys, unless I film my videos late into the night, which is why I have the mic close to me. And if I do that late into the night, I mean, other things get in the way. So I hope you excuse some of the background noises that might be coming in. Apologies, honestly, for that. Okay, so it looks fantastic. It's got this whole matte black aesthetic going on, which I really dig. It looks awesome, understated, stealthy, and just gorgeous. It's got this dual headphone structure. This is the soft inner headband. And yeah, so it's of course adjustable, and this is what it looks like. So I have a pretty large noggin, so the fact that this houses my head extremely comfortably says a lot about its ergonomics. It feels light, it feels I feel free, and I feel like I'm wearing nothing, so it gets the highest marks for ergonomics and comfort. And of course, aesthetics. Now, these are very soft and plush, and these are all plastic materials, guys, which is, it's difficult to expect wood at this price point. But they have some interesting materials. This is zinc, and I think this is zinc, and it does have a very beautiful sort of a gunmetalish coloration, which I think goes very well with this overall black aesthetic. So it's not, a markedly different aesthetic from, I think, the 99 Classics or the 109 Pro, but it is sort of its own thing. Guys, to talk about technical performance, it's difficult to get like the maximum technical performance at this kind of a price point of $400. But this does give you, I think, a better sense of resolution than I get from a lot of other headphones in this price point. Resolution is very impressive, and particularly considering the fact that this doesn't have the highest amount of pinna gain. And I'll get into that discussion when we talk about tonality. But resolution is very impressive for $400 or $399. The stage is also very impressive. It's wider than I expect a headphone at this price point. The imaging is also very impressive for a headphone at this price point. And above all, the dynamics and slam and impact are very, very, very impressive for a headphone of this price point. It is far punchier and more dynamic than I think the 109 Pro is. And any headphone at this price point is, honestly speaking, like no Sennheiser headphone at around this price point, I think, can compete with this MEZE 105 Air for sheer viscerality of sub-bass impact and overall dynamic impact and overall sense of, viscerality. So for that, it receives my highest praise. It is a very dynamic headphone. So for those of you who like that last bit of, a very tactile effect of a kick drum, if you like listening to some rock or EDM even, I think this will really, really float your boat. Now for an important discussion on tonality, guys, because MEZE does tune every headphone according to a sense of its house sound, but with significant variations, because the MEZE Empyrean 2 does sound in some ways like the MEZE Empyrean 1, but has significant departures in how upper mids are presented and so forth. The MEZE Elite also has a departure while adhering to a sense of the house sound. The 109 Pro also has a very different sound from the other flagship headphones. And finally, this comes in. The way I would describe the sound of this, guys, is I would first and foremost say this has a bit of the MEZE house sound in the fact that it's overall a warm, smooth, velvety sounding headphone. And some of this smoothness and warmth comes from the fact that its upper mids are not very pronounced. So if you're looking for the ultimate pinna gain and the final word on clarity, this might not be your jam. But I usually don't, pine for that, last bit of crystalline pinna gain, because that sort of pinna gain to me is not ideal for long-term listening. It becomes fatiguing, even for someone like me who has been in this hobby for as long as I have, and I've listened to so many different types of transducers and so many different kinds of frequency responses. I do think the kind of Harman pinna gain becomes fatiguing for me, guys, especially for genres like rock and metal. So I do think this is something that I think avoids getting into that kind of fatigue territory, and I love this headphone for that. On top of that, I sense this has more mid-bass than the 109 Pro does, and also this might not graph like it has more sub-bass than the 109 Pro, at least as far as some of the FRs that I've seen. But this definitively has more sub-bass impact to me, to my ears, than the 109 Pro does. As a matter of fact, the sub-bass tactility here, because it's a dynamic driver, there's a lot of decay here, and there's a lot of sort of, texture here. I feel like the sub-bass realism here is perhaps the best MEZE has ever produced. And although the MEZE Empyrean OG had a beautiful rotund and round bass that just slammed and had impact and extension and depth for days, I do like, in general, the sound of a dynamic driver sub-bass, which is the reason why I have Focal Clear over there, as you can see. Because these dynamic drivers have a kind of way of decaying the bass, which to me just sounds very natural. I can almost visualize the drum, skin of the drum getting back to its original position as, after a hit or a strike. So that sort of viscerality and realism I'm able to get with the dynamic driver headphone like this one. And I just feel like the sub-bass here is just second to none. So I get a better sense of sub-bass depth here than the 109 Pro. And for that matter, most headphones at this price point is just amazing for sub-bass. I get some mid-bass warmth, which gives it a sense of note weight and just overall smoothness, and just sounds lovely and great for, all day listening. And finally, when it comes to treble, it doesn't have the copious amount of air frequency that I associated with a lot of other MEZE headphones, including the 109 Pro, but it has a bit more mid-treble, which has the effect of giving it a bit more attack with like guitar, electric guitars and what have you. So overall, I would say it's a warmer headphone with a little more mid-treble than upper treble, and just an overall fantastic sounding headphone when it comes to technical performance. So that's what it sounds like, guys. I do want to mention that, in terms of comparisons, although I do feel like I've made a lot of comparisons already, this headphone might not replace a Sennheiser HD600 or 650, although I personally would never have a 600 and a 650 at the same time. I've had both these headphones at the same time, but I always feel that whenever I have the Sennheiser 600 and 650, I gravitate towards 650 because it's got more note weight, a little more mid-bass. That's the kind of music I like. So this is the sort of headphone that I think can effectively replace an HD650. Of course, I'm not saying that will be the case for all of you, but for me, I do feel I would take this because it's got more sub-bass extension. However, if you have an HD600, this can be a very nice complement, right? HiFiMAN has a lot of wonderful headphones at this price point, namely the Sundara. And Sundara is, I think, a bit of a modern legend, but one of the reasons why I haven't ever owned a Sundara long term is because of how a Sundara is built, because many Sundaras have failed on me. Sundara, I think, will rival this for technical performance, perhaps even eke out a little more resolution. But again, I feel like the bass impact of a Sundara leaves me wanting for the genres I listen to. It doesn't have that sort of palpable, tactile, overwhelming sense of bass, which this does, and I love it for that. The Sundara also has a little more air frequencies, which a lot of you might be sensitive to. I'm not. I'm generally not extremely treble sensitive, so take that for what that's worth. So I would prefer this to a Sundara, honestly, although I completely understand if someone else takes a Sundara over this, and that's absolutely fine. It is a bit of a legend, and I respect Sundara a lot. Finally, with regard to 109 Pro, I've already talked about how this fares in comparison, but this is a warmer, less airy, more tactile in bass, and more dynamic version of the 109 Pro is what I would say. And for your information, it does have a similar driver, except from what I understand, it lacks some of the bells and whistles of that driver, like it doesn't have the beryllium coating, and with regard to the chassis of the driver, it has a different material and so forth, right? You can get this boom mic along with it, and this works amazingly with this headphone because, it is a pretty comfortable headphone for all day listening. So if you're gaming or you're working remotely and you're, listening to music, you can seamlessly transition between all of these. And the boom mic is fantastic. I've used it. The voice quality is, vocal clarity is just second to none. I just love the boom mic here, guys. And overall, I would say it is just an amazing listen. The boom mic is wonderful, and I just give this headphone my strongest recommendation at this price point, guys. Well done, MEZE Audio. And I've been hearing that MEZE Audio is planning to release higher-end dynamic driver headphones, and I'm very excited about that because if we start getting more and more MEZE headphones in the dynamic driver driver topology, I'd be extremely grateful and excited because these dynamic driver headphones have this tactility to the bass that I just love. That's it, guys. Thank you for watching my video and stay tuned for my next one. Bye-bye.